people who just like follows this advice of within our team and like our friends, like try everything out there, try to get more efficient as a person first, and then you just bring out everyone along you. And that efficiency is basically producing a lot more work. And instead of fearing what will happen when AI gets even better, you just become the master of it.
Build great products. Build great products.
So today I'm talking to Yus Hilmi, the CEO and co-founder of Polymet, an AI product design tool straight out of Y-Combinator. But before I get into the conversation, let me talk a little bit about how this came about. So a few months ago, I put out my first ever YouTube video reviewing Polymet, and it gave me a little bit of a lackluster impression of the state of AI and product design. Since then, I've gotten to know Yus a little bit. I've gotten to know Kadir and the rest of the team over at Polymet, and their vision for the future of design and the future of design with AI using tools like Polymet is something that I'm really excited to share with you today. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation and reveal Polymet's vision for the future of AI-powered product design. All right, so welcome to the podcast, Yus. Yus is the CEO and co-founder of Polymet. So I wanted to start off the conversation just with asking you, what are people going to get out of this if they carry on watching to or listening to the end of the episode?
They'll learn how to get up to date, and that will result probably in them being generalists that will lead their teams and organizations like a step forward. And that might be too generic. So a good example that we have seen is like people who just like follows this advice of within our team and like our friends, like try everything out there, try to get more efficient as a person first, and then you just bring out everyone along you. And that efficiency is basically producing a lot more work. And instead of fearing what will happen when AI gets even better, you just become the master of it. It becomes your tool. So I think that's going to be the result of this.
And if you just want to explain to everyone, like, what is Polymet? What do you do? What does the product do? A little bit more about Polymet.
Sure. So what we do is quite simple, and I think people are already got used to the tools like ours, which is like we're building an AI designer that is code first. So we teach LLMs how to generate code that would result in good designs. And there are multiple companies doing something similar like Bolt, Lovable, Replit, V0, and many more now. What we do compared to them is just like we focus on design, the quality and the workflow of like exploring an idea, figuring out the best UX path, what would convert more if you put it on a pricing page, etc. So like these kinds of detailed design and UX exploration cases, that's where we excel at compared to everyone else.
Yeah, I think that's what and that's what kind of like stood out to me when I first used the product as well. Like even before the Figma plugin that you guys have, which basically like connects your Figma files to Polymet so you can kind of work back and forth between Figma, is that it seems like Polymet is focusing much more on tailoring a product to more specific like actual UX and UI workflows that people are doing on a day-to-day basis, rather than the kind of generic build anything from scratch, which is what you're getting with Lovable and Bolt. And so I know we wanted to talk a bit today about like what is going to happen in AI for designers, and where is AI going to like take things in the future. So I don't actually know like what your position is on this, and so I'll be really interested to hear like what you think about it, or basically like where do you think AI is going in relation to design and product design in general?
Yeah, there's always this discussion of like what would happen when this is possible. Like if AI just creates really good front-end code, like is front-end engineers are dead? Or like if it creates really good designs, is designers dead? And I think the actual way to look at it is like AI gives us the capability to learn a lot more and do a lot more really fast. So with that, it becomes possible to take on more roles. So instead of this role termination, I think the actual thing that's going to happen is like the roles will shift. Maybe we have heard of this on Twitter a couple of times, like the role of product builder will come out, and it might be a person who understands really like a previous product manager who understands how to build products, but didn't have the capability to write the code or do the design on Figma, right? And I think it's going to be more and more possible for these people to just build something from scratch. And same for designers. Like everyone will come from the position of like they have specialty in one area, like it can be engineering, design, or product, or another thing like support even. And then they're going to have the capability to learn all these different kinds of roles and do the job. And my position have been on like, it's going to be the world for generalists, which hasn't been the case and hasn't taught like in universities and everyone else. Like everyone was talking about this, you have to get more specialized, and founders were like more generalized, and you couldn't get a good job if you weren't specialized in some area. And I think what we'll see more and more is like generalists will win more and more, and they will start to lead the companies and organizations they're in and found new ones.
Yeah, it's music. It's like music to my ears, because I have been like this design kind of generalist kind of person for, you know, and I think that's why I've always worked more with startups, to be honest, is because they kind of needed like someone or like the people to do like all these different types of jobs rather than like this really craft focused designer, which is like what everyone kind of aspired to when I was learning design, and even like working in companies on like UX teams and stuff, like having like this really deep specialism. And I kind of think of it as like maybe, and I don't know if maybe you think this as well, I'm not sure. I would see like if you have a company that has 20 people and they're building a digital product, an app or whatever that might be, and you have all these different roles on that team, essentially it might not like, AI is not going to like replace all those people's jobs, but that company of 20 people might be like 4 companies of 5 people instead, like solving 4 different problems that actually maybe you're more aligned with. And so the opportunity there is really to like take these AI skills, be a generalist, and be able to solve a problem that you care about a little bit more. That's kind of what I think about it anyway.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, before we move on, it's like you can get deeper a lot fast, like really fast. And you don't like generalism usually means like you're not deep in anything, right? But I think it's the opposite now. Like there is no limit to how much you can learn or how fast you can retrieve information. Like if you ask AI, it's going to answer you what was the best way of doing like a UX exploration, and what was the methods that has been taught to them in the university or not. Like what is the common methods to do this exploration? Like when retrieval is that fast, you don't necessarily need to be even deep enough, but you actually act like if you were deep in that area. It can be a narrow subject or it can be a design in general.
Yeah. So do you think it's like, if you're a designer now, do you think that's like, how do I learn these adjacent skills with AI to become more of a generalist? Or like, how do you approach that, like as what I should do next as like a designer?
I think it's just like be up to date, like feed your curiosity on like what is possible now with AI. That means trying out tools like ours and even competitors, like everyone. What is everyone in this market doing as a designer? Like what AI designer tools are doing, and like what like companies like Cursor are building, which is like a code editor with like an AI agent that writes the code, builds the whole thing, etc. I think the more you get curious and try these stuff, the more you'll understand how they work and what's possible for you now. And like it's an exponential curve, so like everything is gonna move even faster and faster as the day passes. And like if you keep yourself up to date, you'll already learn so much just by like following what's new.
Yeah, I like the analogy of like AI being a tool. And like if you think about the people who are very skilled, like craftsmen, for example, they use the same tools as someone just doing DIY at home would use. And so the better you can like learn how to use that tool, the better output that you're going to be able to get out of it. And it's just about like having that skill of practicing a tool basically until you get good at it, because you can't just drop a prompt into, I mean, you can just drop a prompt into Lovable and it will give you something back, but it's going to be pretty terrible. What kind of was a bit crazy to me, like learning as I'm kind of using these tools, is that when you kind of learn to prompt stuff in the right way and speak to these tools in the right way, the amount that like your output can improve is not just like 2 times better, it's like 10 times better, 100 times better. Like the way that you speak to it has such a significant impact on what you're getting out. And each of these tools has like their own little nuances that you kind of learn as you're working with them, the same way as you would learn like those nuances if you're working back and forth with a person. I wanted to ask, because I know a lot of people have tried Polymet. They may have just dabbled in it a little bit, compared it to like some of these other tools like Lovable and Bolt. How are you actually seeing people use the tool? Like, how are you seeing people using Polymet right now? And that could be like, you know, from anywhere from your power users, your enterprises, right through to like individual designers.
What we see is like, I'll actually start with the people who are using the tool the most. And the interesting thing was like, we have mainly product managers and designers using the tool, as well as lots of founders, but they usually land on the PMs, like leading a team. And their use case in maybe 70% is like, they come in with an idea that they want to explore, and they usually start from scratch on like, oh, what I'm going to build next, and like, what will my vision look like? And you can get the answer to that really fast. And it takes like 5 minutes, 6 minutes to get a whole thing built out that was similar to what you have in mind. And you can keep iterating on it to actually get to a level like, oh, okay, that was exactly what I had in my mind. I'll go and share that with my team now. Like, that's the main use case we still see today. And then we have these power users who just like go deeper and deeper into these design workflows. And one of them is like exploring different UX paths, as in like, if you are working on a pricing page, for example, how do you show social proof on a pricing card? Like that can be one of the topics. And there is maybe 20, 30 different ways to do it. Like, what's the most efficient way? What has been done before? And what you should do considering your organization, like your brand design, language, like everything that you have as a company, how do you keep everything consistent as you do that? And where we excel is like that exploration phase is usually where we excel at. And that goes deeper and deeper as the company wants to nail down something. So like pricing page, social proof on a pricing page is like, that has a direct effect on their metrics. And they usually go and do that exploration.
I know we have like a demo basically lined up that is that example. So yeah, can we do like a screen share and you just like take the thing and then show how you would build that in Polymet? Because I think is really interesting to actually dig into the tool and try and create this stuff like on the spot a bit here.
Yep, sounds good. Let me share my screen and let's do a quick demo.
Quick break in the episode to talk about my community for people who are building apps with AI and actually want to make a profit. It's called the AI App Builders Academy. So if you're building an app using Bolt or Lovable or Cursor or any other AI tool and you actually want to make a profit, then this is the community for you. Inside, you'll get access to a community of other builders, weekly Q&As and demo days, and my full Product to Profit course covering everything you need to know to validate your idea, build your app, and then grow it from your first customers and beyond. You'll also get access to all of my startup frameworks from my 15 years experience of designing apps and advising startups on product and design. So if you're building an app with AI and you actually want to make a profit from it, head over to school.com/AI apps and join the community. I'll see you there.
Actually, like we can do both demos together side by side, like a component prompt and a page prompt showing like how to start from scratch and how to start from an existing design that you want to explore. So like we're a customer of Pylon. They're like a B2B support company. And one thing that I realized while I was like trying to find us like a good support tool that we can use, I realized this like trusted by in the pricing card, which is like, it shows you companies that have bought that specific plan, and you can see like, oh, they're backed by YC, they're probably early stage. Okay, so if I'm like an early stage company like Polymet, I can actually go with this plan. And then I come into this professional card and I can see like, these are the plan, like this is the plan for the companies that are scaling really fast. Like they raised Series B, like 92 million, Sequoia led their Series B, whatever. Like it shows like a really good social proof on like how many enterprises and which enterprises have bought this specific plan. And what we'll do is like, we'll take a screenshot of this. And since we also want to, as a company ourselves, like we are working on our pricing page now, and we'll also change some prices, like we'll do some updates. And this is like a good example that we can start with. And we'll say, if we have to go, our prompt is like, I just added the screenshot of the pricing section with some social proof and hovered on the logos on pricing cards. And I want you to create the exact design and then 3 different versions of this UX of showing social proof on the plan cards itself. So I want to see like how I can do something similar to this, but not exactly like this. And I can keep on giving more instructions as in like, I don't want logos. I want the company names. I want you to do like interaction-based things. I want animations or stuff like that. And we'll just send that.
Yeah, it's really good because I think so. I'm thinking about like what would my like design workflow look like for this normally, or even if I wasn't a designer doing this, I probably would go to that website, take a screenshot, drop the screenshot into Figma, rebuild it, and that's going to take hours. Whereas like what I've seen from other like UX designers and product designers who are using AI tools, like, is you can almost like, you basically are getting around that kind of manual process of recreating this thing that you've seen as inspiration, and also getting like AI tools like Polymet to actually create a bunch of different versions for you so you can test different UX patterns, because we don't know what we don't know. And so actually having all of those examples side by side, and I've seen people using Lovable for this, but I think Polymet is a really good use case because it's specifically designed for like this type of workflow.
Yeah. I think we're on dark mode, so we can see it. But one thing maybe while demo goes on, we can share is like, we create the data that we would use in these designs. This makes 2 things really easier. First, like you can see the type of the data as a designer, as a PM, on like how you can connect these designs on your existing like product. And the second thing is, it's just like a better way to work with design is like, instead of like what others do, like connect the surveys as soon as possible, or like try to get this into production grade as soon as possible. What is better that, like, in our opinion, what's better is like, you just refine your design as if you would do with a team, and then you move on to the next step of like making sure it's production grade. You connect the backend, you work with backend engineers, and like you work with engineers to do integrations. And I think the reason that we haven't done the surveys integration is because we'll not go into it until we nail down the integration, and we make sure that the code we produce is at the level of like as if our team had written the code itself. And this also relies on models getting better. But yeah, like I think that's a really important point of like working with data, and we can start examining these designs. Okay, so this is the first example. Like we have the font here, we have some companies. Oh, we also have like different path of like, it shows a code from that customer itself. We didn't do a good job of like showing the logos. I think they're like images that it couldn't pull in from the internet. But like this is a path that I wouldn't have thought of, to be honest. And yes, like I'm not trying to sell the product. I really wouldn't have thought of showing something like this in a tooltip.
Yeah, and that's like it's quite fun when that happens, I think. Yeah. If you're like designing to see like, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. And that's like been some of the best moments with AI for me, is when I put in something and I've prompted it in a way that comes back with something where I like didn't expect it, and it's maybe better than what I would have thought of myself.
Exactly. Like, yeah, like look at this. Like this is not a good UX pattern in my opinion, because I don't necessarily want the like hooked actions of like user has to click testimonials to see the testimonials. It's just like dumb, and we can delete that. But we're exploring now, and like this is, I wish we had the images of the logos. But yeah, this is nice. I think this is animated, as in like if we wait for a second. Oh, okay, this is nice too. So if you're waiting on the pricing page, you'll see what is like, which companies use this and what did they say.
And again, like to connect this to something that you might be doing as a designer or a product manager is like this traditionally, like before doing it this way, I might be like creating a version of this manually in Figma, sharing it with stakeholders, them having to come back and say, can you try it this way actually? Or can you maybe test it like where you have a drop down and you have the testimonials, or maybe like test it with like this sort of layout. We're kind of creating all of those options here. So we can see like what those options are. We don't have to go and like send them off for approval. We can like, we're kind of like getting around that kind of tedious back and forth of like days and days and days of waiting for people to email, and just like creating all of these variants right here, which is pretty amazing.
Exactly. And like, I think the other one is like, like it's one thing that we realize is AI is not going to do a good job 100% of the time, but it does it so fast that you can just take another 5 minutes to wait a couple more versions to make sure that you're going to get a good one.
Yeah.
And like sometimes it fails, like in this case, and then you have to fix these errors, and like all the tools are doing that today. One thing, like this is pretty much it. One thing that we do differently than others is the canvas is like you can work as if you're in Figma, and this usually doesn't work well with like people who are building side projects, like small apps and stuff like that. But it is super powerful if you're exploring different types of designs or different paths that you can take as you're completing a task.
Yeah, for sure. And you can like click on elements here and then actually change like some of the stuff around like within those specific elements. And I know Lovable has like a very similar thing here, but I do think like the UX of like not just being purely chat led as an AI design tool is like really important for the evolution of these tools.
Yeah, exactly. We sent another prompt, we can test it, but like selecting different bits and manually editing few things, like Lovable did that as well. And like, I think Replit did that. Like most companies, including us, we have that feature now of like, you can generate something like this, but you can edit this specific like detail and get rid of it, or like reduce its opacity, its color, whatever. Like, and let's actually do that now. Like I can send a prompt to remove that, or I can use the visual edits to just like, a good way to remove it is just like, if I make it transparent, it's going to go away. And not a great pattern, but does it solve the issue? Yes. And if I save changes, it'll save the changes of like we'll get rid of that code that was overlapping with the text now.
Was there like another demo that you wanted to jump in here?
Oh yeah, let's do it. So I think the second demo we can do is like starting from scratch, right? And what I'd like to do is like, if you have a prompt, I can send it in, or we can just like come up with a new one.
Okay, so I feel like what I found Polymet quite useful for when I've been using it is mapping out like a part of a flow of an app. So like if you're working on Lovable or Bolt, what you're getting is this like visibility of these individual screens, and you can kind of click between them. But as a designer, what's quite nice is to like see that whole flow kind of mapped out and have the prototype that you can kind of click through, which is where I think that canvas works really well. So if we could do like from a prompt, like an onboarding flow or like some part of a flow of an app. I don't know if you have like a specific idea for what you might want to do here.
Okay, I've seen an onboarding flow of Adio, which is like this CRM, and I really love their UX and product. They have this onboarding flow where like they show the product on the right side. If you type in the name, you see the UI getting updated, and you basically go through onboarding as if you're refining the product for yourself. So I think we can try to get something like that. Okay. It might work, it might not work, but yeah, let's see. The following steps. Okay, so first one, get the company name, show a window on the, if we had taken screenshots or like used like Figma, if we had it, that would be easier. But for now, we'll just explain it from ground up because it's just an idea we had, and it's going to take us some time to find that. So yeah, like the prompt goes like, we want an onboarding flow for a B2B company that has the following screens, and we just explain the screens in here. We'll first get the company name. We'll show a window on the right side that gets updated real time as the user writes the company name. Like they're designing. And yeah, maybe like sometimes you don't necessarily want to give specific prompts to the AI, because it was like, if I said like they're designing the app itself, it can just like go ahead and think like it's building a design tool also, or like the B2B company is like a design B2B company. So like there are these nuances, as you mentioned, in the app, like in our app as well, but in the model itself that is baked into the model. So you kind of learn these stuff as you use it. And like the first section, we want the company name, we want the real-time update, and then we want the company details, team size, and what they do. And the third, we want the user details, their role, their team, and ask the question of how do they find us and why are they here and not another place, another tool. And finally, we show pricing plans and ask them to basically pick a plan or continue with free. There's a free trial. So there are sometimes the cases of like people don't give the details of what they do. It's like, if you have a free trial, mention that, because AI will not know what your company does or like what's the most up-to-date pricing page details and stuff like that. I love 15 days for each plan.
Yeah, so I was going to say here, I wonder if we can drop in like what type of B2B company this would be. So I've been playing around with this app idea at the moment that's like your kind of AI mental well-being, like voice assistant. So I wonder if we could say like it's kind of AI powered mental well-being for your team or like for your company.
Yeah, like create an onboarding flow for a B2B company that does AI mental well-being voice assistant for your team that has the following screens and details. And then we go on to the details of like company name with real-time update, company details, user details and their role, and the pricing plan at the end of the flow.
Yeah. And there's like one hack here which I think is useful, which I don't know, like I like to do this. I don't actually know if it helps too much, but it helps me. Is I usually like go 2 steps back from this. So I'll say like, okay, I don't know what the steps are for this. So I would usually like maybe talk to a product manager about that. Let's figure out. So I will create a prompt that tells ChatGPT to be my product manager. And then I'll message my ChatGPT product manager to detail the 4 steps of this flow. And then I'll kind of edit those 4 steps based on that. Yeah. And then I would use that in this prompt here, because that's probably going to be better than like what I would come up with off the top of my head. So like the tip there is like, if you don't know, you can always just like talk to a AI person who would know, and then they will tell you how to do it.
We are actually building that out as a feature now, because what we have seen is like people are building these long prompts in Claude or ChatGPT, but those prompts are so long. Sometimes they include like details on the back end or like unrelated details of the services that it has to use. But like these AI tools have their specific like tool set, and like they are working in an environment that is not as generic as if I had just opened up my laptop and IDE and my local environment as an engineer, right? Mm-hmm. So like what we have seen is like it has become such a problem that we decided to build that out as a feature and feed our internal data of like UX paths and details and like basically the 101 and like the 102 of the product management, how to create a UX, how to work on a UX, how to iterate on it, etc.
Yeah.
So both it can teach people and it can help out with these kinds of cases. And yeah, let's send the prompt in, and
all right,
not wait because it's going to take a bit of time.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing here to have like, you're not just like talking back and forth with Polymet. It's almost like this is your AI kind of product manager, product designer. They know best practice. They're going to make recommendations for you as well.
And yeah, like I think we're getting something here. Let's see.
So what are like, just out of interest whilst this loads, like for those enterprises that are starting to use Polymet, what What sort of questions are they coming to you with? What sort of things are they trying to solve? Just so people can understand, like, if they might be facing these problems as well, like how they might be able to solve it.
So yeah, the biggest problem they have usually is around communication. Like it comes down to of like, how do you allocate resources? How do you get something done in a certain amount of time? And how do you get more efficient, basically? Because the biggest use case that we have seen for these companies is like, we give the power of becoming a designer and the engineer, like I did with my career, to the product managers in these enterprises. And then what we see is like, we have these process of like adapting our code to the enterprise's code base and like their systems. And like it's still early stages, so we are still testing that out. But what we have seen is like the engineering team wants to use the code because it's already at a level that like they're already feeling like they can use it, right? Like if we had just written in the way that they would have, the engineering task would already be done. So everyone becomes this orchestra chief, and like they basically start to lead the AI, not do the work themselves. And you just touch in from time to time. We start to see that with designers as well. Like once the PMs got in and they brought their whole team in, like designers are asking if we can add these new features to the visual editor because they want the same thing that they had in Figma. And like that's what we decided, like we're just going to build something that works on the live code and does what Figma does. So yeah, like this is the design we got, like different sections of the component itself, like the step 1, step 2, step 3, the plan card, and then setup complete confirmation. And then we got the layout that we'll use these components in, just like in Figma. And then we have these, like this prototype basically. So let's see if it's gonna work, like, because like I'm curious. I'll say like, whoa, that's nice. Okay, it's not only updating one place, it's updating 2 places, including this bit. Okay, so my company name is Polymet. This is exactly what I wanted. Maybe a bit more like refined, but I can just refine it later on. Team size 1 to 10 people, technology, air building, and AI designer that can also code, like SP, quite simple here. Let's see. Okay, nice. I was curious about which options we'd have, and like we have these team manager, well-being officer, which is like you see this happening from time to time, and then let's say I still feel like an engineer, so I always choose engineering. And article log. Okay, why did you choose our solution over others? And I think this is like a great question to ask to people who just use your tool. If you're building something new, it's like you have to know what they were trying to do before you, and like how do you compare? Honestly, just curious though. This is an answer you'll get. And then we got into the plans, and let's say we'll go with the enterprise, or like, okay, I can select them now, and then say complete setup. And then my plan is enterprise. It updated this bit as well. Yeah, it's not super great, but like it's like a good way to start. And as you said, like you have all these steps laid out in front of you. You have like, you can work on the layout if you don't like it, or you can work on the content of these steps differently.
Yeah. I think the big win here from a design point of view, like imagining if I was on a design team, if I wanted to create like an onboarding flow within or like a lead gen flow like this from my website or within an app, I would be like designing those components individually in Figma. I'd be designing those screens individually in Figma. There's going to be feedback that comes back. This is great because like it's creating the components here as well. So you can update the components. That's going to update across all of these screens, but it's also it's also just creating all of those steps for you based on that initial prompt. So you're coming in with like a strategic view of what you want to create rather than having to figure out all of that specific detail of everything. And it might actually come up with something better than you could have created anyway, which I think is wild.
Yeah, exactly. And like we do have like basic collaboration on this as well, because what we have seen is like people were sharing their screens with their teammates over Zoom to show what they've did at Polymet. And like comments, notifications. Like basically, I think the way this will go is like we'll give all the classical collab tools of like you can comment on stuff, you can chat in real time. We already have that like cursor chat in Figma, which we use a lot. And like you have to converge into a point of like this tool should be a tool that you can collaborate with other people on. And if you're just working on this one screen, which everyone does, like it gets really hard to communicate what comes at company details section. How do you interact with it? You can miss the details of like AI sometimes changes things that it shouldn't. And if you don't have this canvas open, like it can be hard to see what happened to these designs over the like last 20 iterations, for example. We know companies that went ahead and like built projects with like 200 iterations. Like we record all of those and you have this historical record that you always can go and back from.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. I also just like really hate presenting static designs to stakeholders.
Yeah.
Especially on calls and stuff as well, when it's like, oh, when you click that button, that happens. And so imagine like if you do that, then it's going to go to here. And like I've hooked up this prototype in Figma with a million different connections everywhere, but it's like not 100%, and some things still don't work, or I have to manually describe stuff. And so, I mean, just the value of having an interactive prototype that you can create in like such a faster amount of time is a huge win anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think to end the chat that we're having around this, I'd just like to kind of get your perspective on how product designers, how designers and founders can prepare for this like AI enabled design future. What should I do today if I'm a designer or if I'm a founder thinking about building a business?
I think the first thing that everyone should do is just like know the landscape. Like if you think AI is your enemy, you should know your enemy. If you think of it as your friend, you should know what it's capable of, right? Like in both cases, just like try to learn what it is capable of and don't think that it's going to stay there. Like this is the most important bit. Like you have to understand that it is going and growing in an exponential rate, which means like in 6 months, it's going to be at a whole another place and level, and it might be capable of things that it wasn't. And I think that's the most important thing of like just understand where we are at as society and like as like product teams, as like product builders, whatever, and understand where it's going. And the second bit is just like, as you have talked, is like use these tools, like become the master of these tools and like try different versions of these tools, like ours and many different versions. And like people are, including you, are like testing out now. And the last piece is curiosity, man. It's like, if you're curious, like AI just teaches you so fast, just like get more curious and like open that childish curiosity in you. And like, that's going to just allow a lot more to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's such good advice. And one thing that I often really struggle with stepping away from like this idea of like, oh, I have to be productive. I have to use this for like something really specific. It needs to be like valuable. It needs to, we don't have that much time in our lives, in our jobs, in whatever we're doing but to actually put aside time to just be like, what's a thing you might want to create just for fun, just for something that you like, and then just go and create it with these tools and see what happens. You don't have to have like an actual something that you're going to learn or like an output or a way of replacing a process that you already have. It's just like explore and be curious.
Exactly. As if you were learning how to walk as a kid, right? You were just like, you don't even remember, but like you see it in small kids now. Like they try many different things and they kind of figure it out in the end. And you don't know how to do it sometimes until you were curious enough to explore it, which is like, if you just ask the question of, can you do this to AI? And if it does it, and you'll learn like it's capable of that. And like, if you just think it's contained, if you just think it's just capable of one thing, you'll not know that is possible. And we figured like that as like, the model that we use, like, and the other models that others use, like, it's capable of creating ASCII interfaces. Like, I don't know if you've tried it, but like, you can try it. It fails sometimes, but like, it's literally an ASCII interface. Like, it's not written really well, but like, oh, interesting. That's fun, right?
Yeah,
so you learn a lot more.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for like this. explosion of like creative possibilities that it unlocks basically, and not having to be like so rigid with these ideas and apps or websites or whatever you're building. You can be a lot more creative with it.
Exactly.
And so if people want to try Polymet, where can they go to try it out?
Polymet.ai. So
Okay.
It might be hard to pronounce, but just go with Y and stop at T. Don't go polymeth. We're not selling drugs.
Okay, good to know. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I think we'll wrap up there. And thanks so much for coming on the podcast and chatting, Yus. It's been really good. And I'm excited to see what the future of Polymet holds and to continue like building amazing things and designing stuff with these tools.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Chris. It was great to like do the podcast and chat over what will happen next.
Yeah, awesome. All right, speak soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Build great product. Build great product.